So today we are in part 2 of a 5-week series that we just started last week, from this day forward. There you go. So from this day forward, 5 commitments to fail-proof your marriage. Wouldn't that be nice? 5 commitments. You do these 5 things and you will fail-proof your marriage. That sounds pretty good to me. So last week we started off this series. We said this is based off of a book from one of my fellow pastors and mentors, Craig Rochelle. And he pastors a church out in Oklahoma City, which is in Oklahoma. And a huge growing church. God's blessing the ministry there. He and his wife have started the church in their garage over 20 years ago. They've been married 26 years and have 6 kids, which is almost as many as 7. Some people are just amateurs, really. So they've been doing it for a long time. I look up to the guy, and he wrote this book with his wife, From This Day Forward, A Commitment of Marriage, 5 Commitments to Fail-Proof Your Marriage. So last week we started off talking about the state of marriage and how sobering the state of marriage. So by way of introduction and review, I wanted to kind of remind those of you guys who weren't able to be here last week. Maybe you were, in Japan or whatever. So we talked about the state of marriage in America, the divorce rate being about 54% as a conservative estimate. And that's not just, those heathens that don't know God, those unchurched people out there, those are the Hollywood marriages, only 50% of them last. No, this is in the church, out of the church. This is the American average, 52 to 54% divorce rate. So we said that's worse than going and playing Casino War. These are worse odds than a coin toss that you're going to stake your life in. This lifelong commitment, this lifelong covenant relationship, till death do you part, and more than half don't make it. And the scary thing is, if you look at the statistic of 25 years and younger, the divorce rate jumps up closer to about 75%. If you get married at the age of 25 or younger, the chances of you making it are about 25%. That is crazy. In what other area of your life would you accept those kinds of risks? Yeah, I'm going to throw my whole life savings in this stock. There's a 75% chance I will lose everything and be miserable, but there's a 25% chance it's going to be awesome. So I'm just going to wing it and hope it works out great. That's terrible. So we did say, with this third bullet here, this commitment last week we talked about to, number 1, seek God. We said God is your one. You seek God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. He is the one that you're looking for. He is your one. He is the one. And you seek the one with your 2. Isn't that nice? And we talked about as you seek God together, of course, you guys have heard this. If you've been around church for 5 minutes, you've heard this analogy of the triangle, the pyramid, and as you're seeking God at the top, you both will come together naturally. By default, as you seek God in your marriage, individually, you will find each other, intimacy with each other as well. So we said the number 1, we whittled it down to the number 1 way to do that is one keystone habit, seeking God together in prayer. So if you missed that, go ahead and do that. Commit to seek God together with your spouse. If you're single, you're preparing today for who you're going to marry tomorrow, so do them a favor and you start seeking God and go hard or go home. This is not one of those things where God is interested in half or part. He wants all of you. Would your spouse be okay with just half commitment, half-hearted, kind of in the relationship, we'll see if it goes well? No. God wants all of you. Do your future spouse a favor, you singles out there. Seek God first. So this week, we're going to talk about part 2, our second commitment, which is to fight fair. This is huge. This is huge. Because, do you guys ever have little arguments in a relationship, maybe? Anybody married out there have little fights? We're in church, so we don't want to admit that. God forbid we would raise our voices and say unkind things to the one that God has called us to be wed to. Of course not. We wouldn't do that. So I'm actually the sanguine, hard to believe. I'm the extrovert, sanguine, fun-loving, peacemaker, easygoing guy in my relationship. Normally, when there's one of those, there's the other one. And so I was asking Julie, I was like, I'm having a really hard time relating to this message particularly because I feel like I can't relate to all those couples that fight. All those other couples that have problems. All those other couples that have arguments and stupid little quirky, passive-aggressive, slam this down, shut that hard, ignore you, pull the covers over. I can't relate to that because, no, that's not really us. We've been married for 9 years. I can't remember any fights that we had. So she laughed hysterically at me when I said that. I'm like, what? She's like, you're so great. You're so great. So she reminded me of a couple interesting fights that we had. One particular one was when we had gotten into some argument. Thankfully, I don't remember what it was about. I'm sure I was listening, being super sensitive. But she laughed again. We had some argument that got her heated enough that she actually walked out of the house, got in the car, and drove away. And she said that apparently I had raised my voice. I had raised my voice, and that's weird. Made her feel unloved and even threatened. I was like, I don't remember that. That's crazy. I'm not a yeller, really. Apparently we've had fights as well. So that's good to know, because I think this is the point, that every couple has arguments. Fighting and arguing and friction is normal. Iron sharpens iron is the language the Bible uses in Proverbs, of the sharpening the countenance, the character of somebody you're close to. It's like there's sparks, there's friction, there's heat, but then the final product is this beautiful tool used for righteousness. It's a wonderful thing if it goes well. So all couples fight. Here's what today is really about. Healthy couples fight fair. Healthy couples fight fair for reconciliation and restoration of the relationship. The win in the fight is the relationship. This is huge. Unhealthy couples fight dirty to win. They fight for the victory. They fight for the win. And they fight dirty. So we want to be healthy couples fighting fair. So 3 biblical principles that we get from this book that we're reading is based out of James 1, verses 19 and 20. I think you're already there, so let me get there as well. James 1, 19 and 20, I'll read for you. He says, "Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to get angry." And here's the big shocker. "For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." The anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So I think we don't get angry for the same reasons as God sometimes. And I think we don't get angry in the same way as God sometimes. So the 3 principles that we get there, that you have there in your notes, if you want to write these down, is be quick to listen. Quick to listen. How many of you enter into a debate and just listen with laser focus, trying to discern the meaning of the body language, the gestures, the intonations, the language that's being used, the circumstance, the setting, the way the sun is positioned in the sky, the time of the conversation, just opening your ears. I've heard a lot of people say before, once you start using your mouth, your ears shut down. So a lot of times in an argument, we're just biding our time, waiting so we can get our words in, right? So we are not quick to listen more often than not. So that was... I talked about Julie a little bit, so it's my turn to be wrong. So it's fairness and equality in our marriage, always. So I was texting somebody, and she was trying to talk to me. And I got enough, because I can multitask really well, like the rest of you guys out there. So I'm sitting there texting, going great, and Julie's telling me a story, and I perceive that it's supposed to be funny. So when she stopped talking and I stopped hearing noise, I gave the courtesy laugh. And so... she kept talking some more, and I'm still texting, and so she stops talking. I perceived it was a funny story about one of the kids or something. I don't know whose kids, maybe ours, and so I gave another courtesy laugh. Like you guys do when I preach, and you're like, oh, that's a good one, chaps, and what time is it? So she keeps talking some more. After the seconds, I'm laughing still, and I don't even know why I'm laughing anymore. I'm still texting, and then she says the third time, and now finally I'm like, what is she still talking about? And so I start listening, and I realized, wait a minute, this sounds, I'm catching it, okay, I'm piecing it. And she had said the same thing 3 times, watching me give her this courtesy laugh and totally making fun of me because she knew I wasn't listening. So she was, in fact, just telling me a funny story about something Micah had done, and it wasn't a big deal, but imagine how she would feel if she was trying to tell me something really important, something about, hey, this kid, I'm worried about this thing, or this is what's going on in my heart, God's doing this in my life, and I was, yes, I'll pray for you. Yes. Could you imagine what my actions are communicating about where she sits on my priority list? You know, we said this last week that if God is our 1 and we see God with our 2, our spouse is our 2. Our second most important relationship on planet Earth is our spouse. And when I text or I read or I'm playing Xbox or watching TV or doing anything other than turning my body towards her, squaring off with her, and being quick to listen. She's talking right now. Shh, quiet. I need to get this. This is communication from my two. If God was talking to you, would you listen? This is your second most important relationship. Quick to listen, laser focus. Stop what you're doing and listen. Number one principle for relationship conflict. Slow to speak. This one is a lot easier, right? I want to read you these couple of Proverbs because they're so obvious. I can't say it better than this. Proverbs 18:2, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. So in marriage counseling, I'm blessed to be able to see couples conflict, and it's a great social experiment in my office on many days to see how couples conflict. And I can tell when couples are conflicting whether they have a healthy relationship or not. It's not whether or not they're conflicting, but how they're conflicting. There's a guy named John Gottman, kind of a marriage expert of our day, and he says that I can tell within 5 minutes of watching a couple in conflict whether or not their marriage is going to survive. What? No. So he did a survey. I can't remember how many years the study was, where he surveyed so many couples, and within 91% accuracy, he pinpointed those couples that would not make it, that they would get a divorce, based on watching a 5-minute argument. Is that crazy? So very important point there. It's not if you conflict. Everybody has conflict. Doesn't mean your marriage is doomed to fail. It's how you conflict. So slow to speak. The fool doesn't take any pleasure in understanding. I don't care what you're trying to tell me right now. I just can't wait to make my point. So we can't wait to speak. I flip over to chapter 21, verse 23. It says, whoever keeps his mouth, this is for you guys, keeps his mouth and his tongue, keeps himself out of trouble. You guys, let me just give you a gold nugget of marriage advice. A lot of times, we don't know what to say, right? I mean, can I get it? We don't know what she's thinking. They're crazy. We don't know. We don't know what they're thinking. We don't even try. You will hurt yourself. If you just be quick to listen, what is she saying right now? Is this the part where I'm supposed to give advice or not? Is it supposed to, when she needs an answer, I'm just supposed to, tell me, help me, more. Yes, this is good. And slow to speak. You will be one of the greatest husbands in the world to your spouse, that you just listen. Quick to listen, slow to speak. A lot of times you don't even have to say anything. If you can make a strategic grunt right in a key moment, money. That's free. And then the last one, this might benefit both husband and wife, I think. Chapter 30, verses 32 and 33. Chapter 30, verse 32 and 33. Okay, it's still there. If you have been foolish, exalting yourself, prideful, or if you have been devising evil, if you've been a jerk, put your hand over your mouth. For pressing milk produces courage, pressing the nose produces blood, and pressing anger produces strife. So what this is saying in layman's terms is if you're off your game, if you're about to say something stupid and you've been a fool, you've been prideful, just until you can say I forgive you, or until you can say I love you, or until you say I need a time out. This is from Proverbs. The wisest man in the world said you just put your hand over your mouth and shut it. If you perceive that there's something that's about to come out that doesn't need to come out, just put your hand over your mouth. Our mothers told us this, right? Thank you, moms. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. To save you a world of hurt. All right. And then the final one that we get from this passage is be slow to anger. Slow to anger. Notice it doesn't say don't get angry. That wouldn't be right. Anger is an emotion that God gave to us. So how do we do it? I think we get a clue in Ephesians 4 if you want to turn there. 3 points on kind of how we are slow to anger. First, I think while you're turning there to Ephesians 4, I make the point that some things are just not worth getting angry over. Really. Did you guys know that men and women are different? Did you know that? It's true. It's true. Biology 101. I had to go to college to figure that out. So I was blessed to work with a pastor, Pam, and that was the wife. What's the other one? Bill and Pam Farrell. Write a book together called Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghetti. Men are like waffles. Think about this. Men, thanks to testosterone, and the chemical burning that literally sears the synapses between the left and right hemisphere of the brain, we compartmentalize. This works great for combat. We can go to war and do combat with people, men, and then come back, and that was last week. So I'm over here. You know, PTSD comes from when, I got too many synapses going on. I can't make these connections. This isn't right in my worldview, and it's messing me up. So men typically have a gift, biologically, of compartmentalizing. Men are like waffles. So we talk about the car, and then we'll shut that conversation down, and then we'll talk about our mother-in-law, and then we'll shut that down. And then I love my mother-in-law. Every time we talk about my mother-in-law, it's like, she's so great. I wish, or whatever the conversation is. We shut that down, and then we open up one at a time, please, and just compartmentalize. And that is great for singular focused tasked issues. But when we start trying to multitask, women are like spaghetti. And we can have a conversation about family, about the kids, about our future, about finances, about your job and career, our 5-year goals, and everything in between, and guys start blowing fuses in about 5 minutes in. It's true. So men and women are biologically, fundamentally different, and God made us that way on purpose. Go back to Genesis, male and female. God created them in His image. So God has all of these characteristics perfectly fused into the Godhead somehow, but men and women both have these individual attributes that make us quite different. So be slow to anger. Slow to anger. We are very different. Some things just aren't worth fighting about. Just realizing, Julie will appreciate when she starts seeing the smoke coming out of my ears or out of my sound. No good? All right, transitioning to big boy voice. So Julie will be very gracious and tell me we're going to change topics now. And I so appreciate that, because she knows that I can't keep up with the many threaded loops of emotion and history that are combined into our whole life experience and our whole worlds intertwining together into this one perfect moment. And I'm just thinking, like, I'm really hungry right now. I just need some French fries or something. And it's much more of a linear thinking for guys typically. So three quick things on anger from Ephesians 4 in verses 26, 27, and I think we'll see how we're doing there. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil. So what he's saying is, do not sin, and you're going to get angry, but be careful that in your anger, you don't use that as an excuse. I was just angry, I just blew up, babe. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That's no excuse. Be angry and do not sin, number one. Number two, don't let the sun go down on your anger. The principle here is not that they would fight all night, although that could be exciting when sleep deprivation sets in, but to resolve conflict as quickly as possible. Resolve conflict as quickly as possible. And here's why. He gives that third point. Do not give the devil a foothold. You guys have heard this before. As you keep unforgiveness harbored inside your heart, and you just maybe try to sweep it under the rug. We won't talk about that. That was yesterday. It's a new day. Yay, God's mercies are new every morning. But you're still mad inside, and you know it. If you don't take care of that thing, it'll start to cultivate bitterness. Anger is one of the beginning seeds of bitterness. Unforgiveness will fester in your heart like a cancer that will eat away at the relational intimacy. You have to forgive quickly. So in this just one bullet, slow to anger, there's so much we could say about just the topic of anger and forgiveness, but you have to be quick to forgive, slow to get angry, and when you do, and you maybe misstep, you trespass your spouse, be quick to forgive them, because that will cultivate bitterness, it'll cultivate distance and lack of intimacy in your relationship. So there was a comedian one day that said, never go to bed mad. Stay up and fight. Never go to bed mad. Stay up and fight. Very good principle. Very good principle. You should put that kind of emphasis on conflict resolution. But you remember that unhealthy couples will fight dirty. Unhealthy couples will fight dirty. And we're going to talk about that more in our next section. Unhealthy couples will fight dirty so they can win. It's about their individual victory. While healthy couples will fight fair for restoration. I've offended you. That's failed our relationship intimacy. Let me pursue intimacy with you, pursue restoration with you, and that's the win. So I've offended you, I've hurt you, this is no good, we're fighting, we're having this argument. The win that I'm looking for is relational intimacy again. When we can snuggle again, when we can pray together again, that's how I know we've achieved this restoration, reconciliation. And on that note, one of the biggest ways you can do this, keep from getting angry in a flash, is to be prayerful first. Before you say that thing, ask yourself, does this need to be said right now? Does this need to be said? Or if it does need to be said, does it need to be said right now? So I'll tell you another story. There I was, coming home from work, hard day. Whew, it was hard. Beaten down, tired, limping through the door. And I see Julie, she's got one kid on the hip and a couple kids flipping upside down off the chandeliers. And she's just, I can tell she's maybe had a rough day too. And she gets the 1-year-old into the seat and puts some food down on his tray. And I'm putting my bags down, looking at everything that's going on. And, okay, where am I going to get in? Who am I going to take out first? Who needs a spanking? What's going on? And so I see Julie put the food, the chow, on the kid's tray. And it was strapping him in. I'm like, why do you put, and I think I said it in like a nice way, like, why do you put all the food on the tray at once? Which is perfect timing for this conversation, right? So I don't remember what she said. It was probably something like, oh, babe, let's just talk. I can't remember what, but it wasn't good because I still remember it. So it obviously made a negative imprint. But there's some things that probably don't need to be said at all. You feed the baby this way. I feed the baby this way. Oh, I didn't realize that you just wanted to sit down for 2 minutes because you've been watching these 3 crazy kids for 12 hours straight, and maybe you just wanted a 5-minute break, and so you glop some food on the table so you can sit down. But there's some food, there's some foods that when you feed a baby, it is a commitment. Like rice. When you feed a baby rice, you have committed to a certain level of cleanup post-rice. Their rice is in their nose, it's in their ears, it's curled into their hair, it's in their diaper, it's under their fingernails, it's in every roll between here and there. It's on the floor, it's crusted into the right? There is a commitment that comes with certain foods. Avocado, it's good for them, it's brain food, but there is a commitment that comes with avocado. So when I feed the kid rice, you get a kernel, buddy. Let's see where that kernel goes. You get a piece of avocado, and let's see what happens. Because they try to squeeze it through their fingers, and they can't even use a fork. I mean, jeez. So uncivilized. So there are some things that just don't need to be said in your relationship, if you think about it. And if it really does need to be said, does it need to be said right now? Does it need to be said right now? So Julia is really good at this, I think. She's really good at waiting. When I bother her or frustrate her, when I miss an expectation of whatever it is, she'll pray about it often. And she told me this just last night, now I'm on to her. So what she calls this is a God spanking. A God spanking, that's good. So what she's talking about is when she perceives that her husband is out of the Lord's will, or I've misstepped a boundary. This happens, even with the chaplain. It's hard to believe, I know, but it's true. So she'll pray, God, just, reveal this to him, work on his heart, whatever, because I love him and I'm stuck with him. So God, just please work on his heart. And God will convict me often of something I've done or said or haven't done or haven't said. He'll convict me of this, and I'll come to her and I'll apologize to her, and I'll buy her flowers and diamonds and chocolate, right? Or I'll just be like, babe, I'm sorry about you got so mad the other day. I'm sorry that you got so upset about that thing. I'm sorry that you... No, I'll try to come and apologize, and God will convict me often of this stuff. And she's shared with me last night that that's oftentimes she's been praying about that thing for some time. She didn't feel like she needed to rush in and fight for this thing. She felt like she could let God fight this one for her. Isn't that wise? If we could be slow to anger, let God fight some of these battles for us? Wow. I was just reading about that in, 1 Samuel this week, in our Defender's reading plan, 1 Samuel, when David was about to go mess, was it Abel? Some king, he was about to go mess this dude up. and the guy's wife comes out and she's like, please just let the Lord fight. Don't fight this guy and get his blood on your hands. He's not worth it. Just let the Lord fight this battle. And 12 days later, David's like, all right, roger that. I'm going to go back, pray about it. I think it was 12 or 15 days later, dude's dead. It's like, man, that's good. I hope she's not praying like that hard. But we do got good life insurance around here. All right, so I'm going to give you, thank you for that. So 3 practical tips to help you fight fair. So we got our biblical principles from Scripture. Here's 3 practical tips of how you can fight fair. How are we doing? Oh, so good. So good. 3 practical tips, about 10 more minutes. Work on marriage during non-conflict times. Big surprise. What this does is you work on your marriage, your communication, your intimacy. You work on this during non-conflict times, and you build what we call relationship credit. So when I make a deposit in the bank, or the Marine Corps or the Navy does it for me, I can draw on that for 2 weeks. I can just draw on that and draw on that and draw on that, and then, I'm out of money, and then I'll get another relationship deposit in my marriage, right? Money is almost the same. We get relationship deposits when we say nice things. When we do nice things. Babe, you stay in bed an extra couple minutes. Let me go get that crying baby. Babe, you stay here just a minute. Let me just maybe order takeout if you can't cook. Babe, you don't vacuum today. Let me just vacuum today. If any day you guys were going to get this right, Mother's Day is probably a good time. Looking for ways that you can build relationship credit. This is the lost art of the date night. Right? You guys have heard of this before? The date night? I remember growing up with the date night. I have 4 sisters. I'm 4th in the order. And date night was like Hell Week, I imagine. There was beatings. There was verbal, emotional abuse. There was holes being kicked in the drywall. But my parents were going out on date night, all right? Especially once the oldest was 12 or 13. The oldest has to be. And then they're fully qualified to babysit 4 younger siblings, sure. So my sister is going to counseling for that right now. But there's been times in my marriage where Julie and I have said, you know what, we just, for money right now, it's kind of tight. We really can't afford a babysitter. Minimum wage is going up thanks to In-N-Out, $15 an hour. What's up with that? We can't afford the babysitter, so we'll just have a date night in, and we'll just have quality time in our house today. How well does that work, especially once you include 3 kids under the age of 5? How well is that going to work? That's not going to happen. We're not going to be talking about our marriage and our communication and our dreams and our ambitions and the cruise we took so many years ago, and wasn't that great? We're not going to be building relationship credit. We're going to be arguing over who's going to put the kids to bed, screaming at kids, spankings, it's crazy. Date night. Fight for date night. Because during this time, you can build relationship credit. You can affirm each other. This is a second handout that I gave you in your bulletin. Affirming communication. Say things like, I really appreciate it when you fill in the blank. I really appreciate it when you did this with the kids. I really appreciated how you said this. I really appreciated how I know it was hard for you to get home on time today from work because the boss was grinding and wanted you to do more. And I know it was hard for you, but I know you fought to get here just so you could be home for dinner. And I saw how you wrote me this note. This is the time where you intentionally, weekly invest in your relationship to build relationship credit. So this happens on what we call date night. I don't care if you are on food stamps. I care if you're on food stamps. That sucks. But I don't care if you think you don't have money. There's books written about this that Julie and I have, and you can borrow. Dates on a Dime. There's all kinds of ways. You can go parking and just sit there. And you can do things that don't cost money. I can think of some things that you can do that don't even cost money, right? And you can have a good time on date night on a budget. So once you have invested in the relationship this way, and you've used some of these affirming conversation tools that I've given you, right, slap that down on the table between you guys as you have your 69-cent cup of coffee from 7-Eleven. You don't have to go to Starbucks on date night if you can't afford a $5 latte. 7-Eleven actually has pretty decent coffee. McDonald's has pretty decent coffee. You'll be okay. You could drink water and just go talk in a park somewhere. We're in San Diego. There's no excuses. But after you've done this, after you've kind of fattened them up, that is when you go ahead and bring the heat. That's when you give that the constructive feedback into the relationship. You know, the other day when I was balancing one kid on my hip and one kid on my head and the other clinging to my knee, and you walked in the door and said, "Why isn't dinner ready yet?" When you said that, it made me feel a little bit unappreciated. Versus in the moment when this knucklehead says something unloving or insensitive, you drop what you're doing, throw a pan across the kitchen, scream, and run out of the house. Julia's never done that, I'm just saying. But in the heat of the moment, it's easy to react and get defensive, to shut down the hearing, to go straight to the speaking and accusations and allegations and demeaning speech, and this will tear down the intimacy that you've cultivated. So on date night, after you've said these nice affirming things, you can go and you can bring up these issues in that nice environment. Maybe after you've had a glass of wine or 2 or 3, just tell the waiter, leave the bottle, we're going to talk. Whatever you need to do to be able to offer that constructive feedback. Number 2, agree on rules of engagement. Again, unhealthy couples fight dirty to win. Healthy couples fight fair for reconciliation and restoration. So just 5 ideas that we got from the book. 5 ideas for how you can lay down some ground rules. You can add to these or take away. Never call names. Never call names. You idiot! I can't believe you forgot that again. What are you, some kind of moron? Successful couple there? Probably not. Do not call names. There can be no good that comes from that. The Bible says, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what builds up. Never raise your voice. This is why Julie walked out of the house one day, because she perceived that the conversation was escalating in a negative direction. Time out right there. Never raise your voice. Nothing good. If the voices are getting raised, call a time out, come back. Never get historical. Guys, this is one that is easy for us, because we don't remember anyways. Never get historical. This is not the time to bring up, it's just like you did 5 years ago. It's just like you did on our wedding day 25 years ago. It's just like you did last week. Never get historical. Love keeps no record of wrongs. We're not keeping a scorecard, because the win is not to prove you're wrong and I'm right. The win is to reconcile and restore intimacy. Never get historical. Never use words like never or always. You never take out the trash. You never cook for me. You never buy me anything nice. You never take me anywhere. You always do this. You're always nagging. You're always complaining. If they ever didn't do it or did it once, now you're just lying. So that's bad. In the Bible, it says that. I think it made one of the top 10. Don't lie. Don't bear false witness. And then 5, never threaten divorce. We don't even use that word in our house. It's a dirty word, a cuss word. Never use divorce. It's not an option. Week 5 in our series is going to be never give up. And if you're in a relationship where you've committed to never give up, then divorce isn't an option. You've buttoned down the hatches and locked the doors, and we're going to work this thing out. It might take 5 years, but guess what? We're here till we die. Okay? Never give up. We never talk about divorce. Never threaten divorce. It's cruel. It's emotionally manipulative. And it is the thermonuclear version of conflict resolution. We will just blow this thing up. There's no saving it. We're going to blow it up. So, I'll throw out an extra rule just for fun. Don't bring me into it. When you go home today, like, you heard what the chaplain said, didn't you? Didn't you? Just, if you got yourself into it, then you need to figure out your rules of engagement. But having said that, my final point on this is seek help. Very practical. It is out there. I just took my car to a mechanic yesterday because I don't know what I'm doing. I can change the oil. I can change windshield wipers, the blades, on there. I can do some of these things. But when it comes to some serious engine work, I'm like, bro, can you help me out? I have friends that I'll go to and say, it's making this weird noise. Not my wife, my car. It's making this weird noise. I don't know what it's doing right now. Can you help me diagnose and figure out what this is? There's people that do that. There's books written about it. There's Chilton's Manual for your car, and there's other books for your wife or your husband. Be fair, equitable. Right, babe? Right, babe? So, get help. Seek help. Don't be too prideful. Don't wait till you're broken down on the side of the road and your marriage is smoking and you have no idea what's wrong. Seek help. Don't be too proud to do that. There's Christian couples you can go to. There's professional marriage and family counseling. There's books. There's seminars. There's cradle retreats. There's pastors. There's chaplains. Seek help. How do I know if I need help? My marriage seems kind of normal. Some fights are normal. Some fights are normal. You argue about this and that. The toilet paper is upside down. Again, haven't you figured out? It comes from the top. Everybody knows that. It comes from the top. Can I get an amen, guys? The toothpaste, we don't need to argue about these things, but they're normal life issues that you're going to get heated about. But here are four quick things that you can see if you might need some help. I'm just going to talk about it quickly so that if this is one of you, you might have a red flag pop up. Four warning signs that you might need to get some help in fighting fair. If you are criticizing your spouse, criticizing is different from complaining. Complaining is, oh man, we're so busy. We're always so busy at work. I wish we had more time together because I miss you, babe. I really miss you. We're complaining a little bit at that point, and that's okay. We can complain to each other and help each other get through life. That's okay. Criticizing is, you don't care, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're such a dummy, you're an idiot, we're calling names, we're being critical of somebody's worth. The second thing is contempt. This is when you have come to disrespect your spouse. They're not good enough. Oh, you're going to fix that? Like you're a great handyman. You've shown contempt. This is something that, as it starts to fester in your relationship, will ooze out. You see these couples at the commissary. You see them out shopping, and they're just nasty to each other. They don't value each other. They are nicer to the cashier at Walmart than to their spouse because they're showing contempt. Defensiveness. If you and your relationship or your spouse will not take responsibility for the conflict in your relationship, you're being defensive. Oh, it's all his fault. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. It's all her fault. It's all this fault. It's all their fault. Blame shifting. Defensive. Refusing to take ownership for your part in the conflict. And finally, stonewalling. If you're stonewalling, this is kind of the passive-aggressive, like, I'm fine. No, it's fine. But babe, I feel like you're mad at me. No, it's fine. No, that's fine. Wait till you go to sleep tonight. That's fine. Stonewalling is the opposite of pursuing reconciliation. Now, this is different from a timeout. A timeout is a strategic self-control. Holy Spirit, last fruit of the Spirit is self-control. I need some of that right now. Lord, help me. And do that in a 5, 10-minute, 1-hour timeout, but do that in agreement to come back together and reconcile. Don't stonewall, put off the conversation, sweep it on the rug, it never happened, don't worry about it, it's fine. You need to talk about it. All right? It's hard, but you need to talk about it. All right. My conclusion for you is that in this sermon about fighting fair, I feel woefully inadequate to talk ad nauseum about every single one of these issues that we've flown through. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. All these tips about anger and how to manage your anger. Tips about how to know if you might need help in fighting fair. There's a lot we could talk about, but we've already been going at it for a while. So I wanted to say that if you have experienced all of these things in your marriage, and you feel like you are in an abusive relationship even, I want to tell you with confidence that if you remember our commitment from last week, if you're willing to seek God together first, God can heal any relationship no matter how far it's gone, because He is the God of hope, the God of joy, and the God of peace, the God of love, a God of mercy, a God of forgiveness. He can fix, heal, restore your relationship no matter how far it's gone. No matter how far it's gone. I want to encourage you guys to practice these two commitments. Seek God and fight fair. Commit to fight for your relationship. Fight for the win for both of you, which is that reconciliation, intimacy. All right, if you happen to have your spouse in here, take their hand. Go ahead, let me see. Hold their hand. We're going to pray. If you're single in here, look for somebody who's not holding anybody's hand. Slide over. No, I'm just kidding. Would you all please pray with me? Our gracious God, we thank you so much for just being such a great example to us of an unfailing love. If we look at Christ's example of love for the church and how you continue to pursue intimacy, it says in Hebrews that you stand to make intercession for us daily as we continue to fall short to meet your standards, you continue to intercede for us. Lord, you love us so much. So, Lord, I first want to pray for the married couples in here, that, God, you would help them to renew their commitments to each other and to you, that they would seek you first, and that when conflict comes in their marriage, they would fight fair, that they wouldn't consider each other the adversary, but that they would call the enemy as he is, that they would call him Satan, that they would call him the deceiver, Lucifer. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Lord, help us not to look at our spouse as the enemy, but help us to always conflict for the win of reconciliation. Lord, I pray for those singles out there. Lord, I pray that they would take these notes to heart and that they would consider their future relationships and that they would be trained and equipped now so that they have a better chance for success in their future marriage. Lord, I pray for those marriages in here that are struggling, that are suffering, and perhaps have been through divorce already. God, that's why, again, I love the title of this series, From This Day Forward. From this day forward, from this moment forward, we can be different. In Jesus' name, we can be different today, and you can provide healing in any situation. And Lord, finally, I pray for the last group of people in here, those people that are still divorced from you, living in their sin. They haven't reconciled that relationship with you. And Lord, I pray that you would touch their hearts, that they would seek, that they would knock, and that they would find right relationship with you. For whosoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Lord, thank you for this time. We pray all this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.